So Trump just dropped an 8-minute war trailer on Truth Social, and the missiles are already flying. This isn't a surgical strike, it's major combat operations inside Iran.
While you're watching this on your phone or iPad, journalists in Doha are working from their bathrooms because it's the only safe room left. The Gulf is erupting, and Canada just issued an emergency leave now order.
Oil, flight paths, and your grocery bill are about to collide with a regional explosion.
But here's the question no one in the briefing rooms will ask. Why now? Why this massive gamble today?
Exactly. Because if you look at the calendars of the men making these calls, the timing is, let's say, convenient. We have Benjamin Netanyahu, who is currently facing an active ICC arrest warrant for war crimes and is physically appearing in court for his 79th time in a corruption trial this week.
And then you have Trump. While he's posting war trailers on Truth Social, the headlines back home are screaming about missing FBI files from the Epstein investigation. Allegations that were buried or deleted by the DOJ. It's hard to focus on a scandal at home when you're watching a firestorm in Tehran.
We aren't saying the Iranian regime is the good guys here. Far from it. But we have to ask if this is an operation to help the Iranian people, or if it's the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card for two leaders who are backed into a legal corner.
So, as Operation Epic Fury lights up the skies over Tehran, we're asking the question the mainstream media won't. Is this war a strategic necessity or a massive distraction from the legal scandals haunting Trump and Netanyahu?
But let's get real here, because the peace president label is starting to look more like a marketing slogan at this point. In just the last few weeks, we've seen oil being starved out of Cuba, an invasion of Venezuela, and now Operation Epic Fury in Iran. Not to mention the threats to Canada's sovereignty and Greenland and bombing in Nigeria.
It makes you wonder, when does the list end? Or is the point that it never ends? If you're losing your grip at home, if you're staring down midterm elections and missing FBI files from the Epstein investigation, war? It's the ultimate distraction.
Now, we all remember back during the Obama administration when Trump tweeted that, hey, look, Obama's poll numbers are down, so what's he going to do? Probably attack Libya or Iran. What does that say?
Well, we all know that Trump is a truth teller when he accuses other people. Whatever he accuses someone else of, well, that's his plan to do himself.
And here's the hardest part to swallow. We don't actually know if this is the right move because it didn't go through Congress for a vote. There was no debate, no authorization, and no backstop. It's just two men, Trump and Netanyahu, doing their own bidding while the world holds its breath.
When you bypass the people's representatives to launch Operation Epic Fury at 2:30 a.m. on a Saturday, you aren't acting as a leader of a democracy. You're acting like the very dictators you claim to be fighting. You're using regular people as pawns in a game to save your own political skin.
Now, the question we're asking, is this good for the Iranian people? Is Trump, for once, doing the right thing? We've all seen the footage. Since January, the news has been an absolute horror show. Thousands of Iranians killed for protesting, women and children gunned down in the streets for wanting basic dignity. They've been living under an iron thumb that's heavier than most of us can even imagine.
So on one level, seeing the military capability of that regime get hit might feel like justice. It might feel like the only way out for them. But here's the brutal truth through history. In the short term, war is never good for ordinary people. War doesn't land neatly on the shoulders of the powerful. It lands on the families trying to find bread and water while the bombs drop. We all watched what happened in Gaza.
And when outside powers start talking about overthrow, regimes don't soften. They tighten the screws. They cut the internet. They hunt down anyone accused of being a collaborator. We're already seeing reports of mobile services being cut across Tehran right now.
In the long term? Yeah, it could weaken the regime and lead to a freer Iran. It's possible, but it's not a guarantee. And the U.S. isn't exactly known for their follow-through. They are great at starting wars, but they will leave the people who helped them high and dry.
The right thing really depends on the goal here. If the goal is truly preventing nukes, people can debate the force. But if the goal has drifted into regime change just to stay in power at home, well, that project never stays tidy. The cost is paid in years and lives, not days.
And here is where the story could turn into a nightmare, because when a leader is using a war to outrun a courtroom or a scandal like the Epstein files, they aren't just looking for a win, they're looking for an escape. And desperate leaders make desperate choices. We are being told Operation Epic Fury is necessary to stop a nuclear threat. But wait, Dave, didn't we hear this exact same story less than a year ago?
Yep. In June 2025, after Operation Midnight Hammer, the White House literally used the word obliterated. They told us the B-2 bombers had turned Iran's nuclear program into rubble and dust. They took the victory lap and they said the threat was gone.
So, which is it? Was the 2025 mission a failure and they lied about being a success? Or was it a success and they're lying now just to justify a new invasion? This regime in Washington is talking out of both sides of its mouth, and they're counting on us of having a very short memory.
It's a pattern of deception. You can't claim a mission was 100% successful in June and then claim that same target is an imminent existential threat in February. That isn't strategy. That's a sales pitch for a war that nobody voted for.
And that's the danger. When war is based on shifting lies, it's not about national security. It's about two leaders, Trump and Netanyahu, using regular people as pawns to stay in power and out of a courtroom. It's the dictator's playbook, plain and simple.
Trump went on Truth Social with an 8-minute video and announced the U.S. has launched what he calls major combat operations in Iran.
And he openly said American casualties are possible.
And here's what makes this different from a lot of past flare-ups. Iran didn't respond in one place. It responded across the map.
Missiles and drones moving towards Israel and strikes and interceptions being reported across the Gulf. Qatar, the UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, countries that host U.S. forces.
There are two wars that start on days like this. One is overseas, and the other is at home, inside politics, over who authorized what the goal is, and how long anyone is willing to pay for it.
Which brings us to the part that everybody feels. Oil, shipping, and prices. You don't need a missile to land in your city for this war to affect your life.
If risk rises in the Gulf, insurance rises. Shipping costs rise. Fuel costs rise. Airline routes change. Freight delays pile up. And companies start charging more because it costs more to move anything anywhere.
And that's how a conflict that you're watching on your phone or television turns into your grocery store and your gas bills.
Now let's get to the simple and brutal question. Does this stay mostly direct military action between Israel, Iran, and U.S. assets? Or does it widen into a full-scale regional war? The warning signs are already there because Iran has shown that it can hit across the region and it's willing to do it. That brings us to the most terrifying escalation math of all, the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has already threatened to choke off 20% of the world's oil supply if this continues. If they sink a tanker or mine that strait, the global economy doesn't just stumble, it actually stops.
And that's the question no one wants to ask. If conventional bombs don't clear that path, does a desperate administration look at the nuclear option to blow the bottleneck wide open? We're talking about tactical nukes to clear a shipping lane just to keep the oil and the optics flowing.
And that's the part that people outside the region need to get. The battlefield isn't one line on a map anymore. It's airspace, it's bases, it's shipping lanes, it's your fuel bill, it's your flight getting rerouted. It's also why this story is instantly global, not just war in the Middle East. Because it's not just about who wins, it's about whether the region's arteries actually stay open. And the third question here is the one that determines whether anyone finds an off-ramp, right? What does the leadership on both sides believe will happen if they actually stop?
If Tehran believes backing down equals collapse, it'll fight harder. If Washington believes stopping equals humiliation, well, it'll keep escalating. And if Israel believes stopping equals a future existential threat, it'll keep going. And that's why this can slide so fast.
Okay, so what are we watching the next 24 and 72 hours? Well, first, whether the strikes continue in rounds with visible pauses and assessments. That tells you that this is structured as a campaign, not an impulse.
Second, whether Iran continues targeting U.S. assets across multiple countries at once. That tells you the strategy is to spread pain and pressure allies. When leaders talk like there's only victory or death, you get more war. When they start talking about pause, de-escalation, channels, mediators, communications, that's the first hit of an off-ramp.
Now, right now, the rhetoric is hot. The actions are hot, and the region is absorbing it all in real time.
And for everyone outside the Middle East watching this isn't over there. It's in your economy, your politics, your travel, your energy prices, and your sense of what the next years will look like.
So drop a comment with where you're watching from, and tell us what you think the end game is here. A limited objective or something bigger? And if you want the deeper context and what we're tracking next, it's all over on our Substack and the link is down below.
And if you want to support the work, check out our merch or join the A-Team, because facts aren't free and independent voices are more important than ever.
Don't forget, we also have a private Facebook group that you can go and voice your opinions in a safe space. Thanks for watching, everybody. Stay sharp, stay safe, and we'll see you tomorrow.